Welcome to Conversations with Dr. Neva. I am your host, Dr. Neva, and today I have two fantastic, brilliant experts with me to talk about the topic on balancing family, career, and relationships. And I wanted to present this topic simply because I've noticed when you turn on the TV, the dynamics in families breaking down. Everyone's so focused on career. What happened to the family? What happened to parenting? What happened to structure and building? So thank you so much, ladies, for being here with me today. Right here, I have Georgia Woodbine. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Neva. It's my pleasure to be here.
And beside her, I have wonderful Ellen. How are you today?
Ellen Gottlieb, good evening. I'm delighted to be here.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. What I want you to do is to really introduce yourself to the audience and to the TV world. Who are you? What do you do?
I'll be happy to begin. I'm Ellen Gottlieb, and I'm an attorney practicing law full-time, but I have finally figured out what I want to do when I grow up.
So you haven't grown up yet?
Well, I'm always working on that. We all are.
Okay.
But I am the founder of a coaching practice called Enlightened Parenting. And my work with parents is to teach them how to foster deeper connections with their children so that their kids feel much greater self-confidence, more resilience, and while fostering connection, also learning how to impose essential boundaries. And I really try to work on stopping all of the arguing, the nagging, the yelling, all the reactions in parents. And by doing so, kids are a lot happier, and I find we can foster a real joyful connection between parents and child in a very mindful, conscious way with wonderful strategies. So it's my pleasure to be here to talk about this. It's my favorite subject.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Georgia.
Thanks for having me again. My name is Georgia Woodbine. I am an author, speaker, and I don't say life coach, I say lifestyle transformation coach because I'm about changing lives and transforming minds. I am a change agent. That's who I am. That's what I do. I'm about empowering people to live their best life, to live a happier and healthier lifestyle. I share like simple techniques on little things that you can do to really find that fullness in your life, because a lot of times you always feel like there's just something missing. So I get like deep down to the nitty-gritty. You know, I talk about time management, I talk about health and wellness, how to get to a place of self-actualization, you know, finding true self, finding out who you are, not who other people have dictated your whole life and told you this is who I am, but really getting to that place where you really know who you are and understand who you are so you can live in your highest and fullest potential. So that's what I do.
Georgia, you mentioned living a full life. What is living a full life?
Living a full life is not comparing yourself to others. It's not worrying about what other people think of you. It's living your life on your own terms and being okay with who you are, even if you don't have everything that you desire. But learning to love who you are, appreciate who you are, because until you get to the place of self-love, it's really hard to attract love. It's hard to get to a place where you feel, you know, happy about life. So that's really the first step, getting to the place where you know what, being complete and being full and finding your potential. I think once you learn to find your passion, that gives you that sense of a fullness in your life, because you feel like you have a life of purpose. And when you have a life of purpose and you're sharing that with others, that gives you that fulfillment.
Okay. So, again, my question, you having this fulfillment, you're thinking about you. What happened to your family? What happened to the relationships?
Well, that's where
How does that connect?
Well, that's where the balance come in, where I talk about in my latest book. It's called Total BS. And the BS is not the BS you're thinking, people, but it's body and soul. And it's really learning how to balance mind, body, and soul. Learning how to balance work life and family life. And you know, sometimes it's a struggle because you have your kids, they're your priorities, you have your job, you have to pay the bills, you have to do this, you have to do that. And sometimes it's really a struggle to get to that place where it's like, okay, really, what do I want? What do I want to accomplish in my life? What is it that I feel that I can contribute or make a difference with? So I think, you know, we're talking about the balance and the family life is really learning how to find yourself. When you find yourself, then you can be a better person to give to others.
Okay. Helen, one of the questions I know people think about is, why would I need someone to help me to raise my child? You're a parenting coach. What exactly is that?
Well, sadly, Neva, what we tend to do as parents, because there really are no instructions, right, when we have these children, is that we impose on them whatever legacy was imposed on us, and we do it in an unconscious way. So, and we have deep ego attached to our children. So we have a lot of desires for outcomes in our children. We want them to be musical. We want them to be friendly. We want them to be kind. We want them to be popular, athletic. And by the way, they should get straight A's. And they should be everything that makes us feel good. And we forget that they are a separate being, that they are unique, and that we need to let go of our agenda. And so what I find happens a great deal in the parent-child relationship is kids don't feel heard and they don't feel seen. Their parents are so busy reacting and being angry and not recognizing just that the being in front of them is enough, just as it is. I always joke, I say my children are flawlessly flawed and perfectly imperfect.
I like that. Repeat it. I like it.
So, and all of our children and all of us, we are perfectly imperfect. We are flawlessly flawed. And we are not all of those things that we ask of our children.
Right.
Right? We're not. We can't be all of those things. And my work focuses on sort of two tracks, one of imposing and connecting, I shouldn't say, and it's not an imposition, but deeper connection, while imposing essential and just essential boundaries. Because we don't want kids running amok. Well, of course, we're the guides, but we are just guides. And I see the parent-child relationship as one on an equal plane. It isn't authority and inferior, but it's an equal walking of this path together, and it's a sacred path. So there's a lot to teach parents about how to kind of let go and stop reacting and teach emotional resilience and allow sadness and all of the breaths of emotions. So there's a lot of education that people don't understand in this parenting journey.
I watched a video the other day and it was completely sad. I was saddened. This little boy committed suicide. And he left a tape. He recorded himself saying that he didn't feel loved. He was always blamed. He was always wrong. This is not what his peers from his aunts, and they made him feel stupid and he didn't want to be called dumb.
Of course.
Yes, and leaving that tape, just it's circulating on WhatsApp and all over, it just breaks your heart.
It's heartbreaking to me, and I always say the first work is we have to stop blaming, shaming, criticizing, judging, and that's what this work is about. So just to follow up on that tragic situation, I always believe there are two questions that we all spend our lives seeking answers to. And those two questions are, do you hear me? And am I worthy? And do you hear me encompasses, do you see me? And are you listening without judgment, without blame? Just listening is often enough.
Who should be listening and who should ask those questions?
Well, we start with the parent who really needs to deeply listen, and so often we're speaking. Not only do we want to blame, shame, and criticize, but we want to fix, and we want to rescue them, right? Especially those with teens. We want to fix it, and we want to give you advice because we know better. But actually, what our children are so deeply seeking is just simply to be heard, which is just listen without reacting. And when they've not done the homework or failed to walk the dog and spilled the nail polish on the new carpet, to not react is the greatest gift you could give your child.
How could you not react, though?
Well, you know, it's to piggyback what you're saying, it starts with self.
Exactly.
Because before you can get to that place where you can listen to your children, you have to work on you so that you can be in a way to be in a better place to embrace that. You know what I mean? It starts with the self, looking at self and looking at what you need to work on as a parent.
And Georgia, I love your work because if you do the work that Georgia teaches, then you have more to bring to the table when you're parenting your children, because it's so much about self-care. And the tone and the energy we bring to the child is critical, you know, and the children, and let me tell you, they know when we're not being authentic, and so you need to learn through this kind of work how to do the self-care, how to feel good about yourself, how to be the role model and feel worthy. So I always say, don't ask your children what they want to do when they grow up. Ask yourself, what do you want to do when you show up?
That's right. I like that. I like that. Yeah, it's very, very true.
But Georgia, in order for you to take care of others, you have to take care of yourself.
That's right.
How do you take care of yourself? What are some of the things you should be doing to take care of yourself?
Well, one of the things I talk about is, and this is a big one because I know a lot of people say, well, I've never tried that or I don't know how to do that, is meditation. Meditation can relieve stress. It can give you clarity. It can give you focus. It can give you ideas. It can make you creative. It can help you to deal with your kids better. You know what I mean? So one of the things to get to that plane is to pull back from everything. Pull away from everything. Silence the mind so that you can learn how to react, learn how to respond to situations as they arise. Sometimes, you know, I always tell people before, when someone gets you really upset and you're so ready to send that text and put all the caps in it, stop for a minute. Think about what you're going to say before you say it, because we're so quick to react to when somebody makes us feel a certain way. When you learn to get to that place of self-love and balance, then you operate different, because people around you are going to see something different about you. They're like, what is it about you that makes me want to gravitate to you, or makes me want to hear what you have to say, or makes me want to feel the way you're feeling? And it's something that they're doing different. And they're learning how to get in touch with self. And that's a big piece in anything, whether you're dealing with in a relationship, whether you're trying to lose weight, change your diet, change your job, whatever it is, it all goes right back to that.
How do you meditate?
Well, I'll tell you how. I started meditating about maybe 12, 13 years ago. Now, the first time I did it, it was hard, because it's almost like you have to tune yourself out from the world around you. We all know we are inundated with information, right? So the first time I tried it, it was a little bit hard. I always say, start out doing it maybe like 2 or 3 minutes. Just take that quiet time. Then you can gradually go up in time. But just start out. And for some people it's hard because they're like, I can't just sit in silence. I have too much to think about. I have too much to do. I have too many places to go. But you can start out with maybe putting on some calming music, some soundscapes music, some jazz, something just to kind of get you in that mindset, waterfalls, nature sounds, just to kind of pull you away, you know, from everything else. And then once you start to practice it, because meditation it takes practice to get to the place where you could actually meditate without anything. Like I could meditate for hours now because I've learned how to master it. And what happens is when you meditate, like I said before, it really teaches you how to deal with life. even disappointments, even setbacks, even obstacles as they come. You just become a better problem solver. How many of us want to become better problem solvers? We all do.
Yes, I do.
You know what I mean? Because when things start to happen, and as you were saying, letting go, when you lose control of things, that's the hardest, because we all want to have control of everything around us. We want to be in control of everything. And letting go is actually the solution to it all. Understanding that there are some things out of your control, but that's not such a bad thing. Maybe you just need to look at a different way of dealing with certain things that happen. So that's why meditation is something that you should all try.
Okay. Stress. With career comes stress.
Yes.
Helen, how do you manage that stress? I want to know how you personally manage, and what would you recommend to others to manage stress?
Stress comes from a desire for control. I mean, Georgia talks a lot about control, and I believe truly that control is an illusion. So the only thing we can truly control is what's in our thoughts and our own minds. And yet, instead of controlling our internal, we do everything to control our careers and our lives outside. So I do a lot of work around stress. There are a lot of stressed children these days. You know, their kids are very anxious, deeply, deeply anxious now because of all the demands on them. As much as adults are anxious on the career world, children are anxious in their own lives. And the first thing I say is be anxious. So we have to learn to tolerate stress and anxiety, and then we start to deconstruct it. And we start to understand what triggered that stress. And if for a child, for example, the child who gets the C grade, the parent tends to attach to that grade. That grade is just a letter. It is just a number. It is literally, to me, meaningless. So one of the ways I deal with stress is to allow it, to be in it, and also then to try to detach from the external trigger of the stress. And these are some of the strategies that I work with.
You said a grade, like a C, it means like nothing, or an A, it's just a letter. But that's not what we are taught.
Exactly. I know that.
So how do you say, you know, you see the C, or make it worse, an F, and say, oh, it's okay?
It is okay. It's just a letter.
Okay?
It's just, you know, it's just what the child did in that moment, and it is okay. Now, obviously, if a child is failing a subject all through, of course we need to intervene. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, let them fail out of everything. No, there's an attunement here, a discernment, Neva, that's required. So the first thing the parent needs to do is to detach. I sometimes joke with the parents and I say, what would you say to your neighbor or your friend whose child got the C or the F? You'd say, it's okay. Allow it. It's not the end of the world. But when it's your own child, you're triggered.
Different, right.
It's that trigger that the parent needs to start observing. Okay? It's the trigger, because what makes me angry doesn't make you angry, which shows you that the anger is internal. Okay? So first we have to approach the child with the F with a neutral, detached demeanor. Very important. Okay, today you got an F. I promise you the child's not going to be thrilled with the F either. There will be consequences in the world that come from the C or the F. But that child isn't less than because of that grade. That meant that on that test, that was that child's performance. Now let's deconstruct why that happened. So once the parent lets go, that's where transformation and change can occur. Okay, today you got a D. Okay. And I always use bedtime. I find, especially with the younger and even the more teenage grown-up children, bedtime was the time. And then you could say, hey, what happened? And they'll say, oh, I forgot there was a test today. My response was, you got a 50 and you didn't even know there was a test? That's half. Okay. It's in that energy that the child is much more likely then to say, and I figured out how to manage my time differently so that next time I won't forget there's a test. If you come down on that child, you're grounded. First of all, what does grounding have to do with a grade? You're grounded, you can't go out, you can't, you know, you're not going to force your child into anything. And I'm sure Georgia will tell you that forcing never gets results. Never. You
Right.
can't force
Well,
anything.
that's
It
the
has
thing.
to come from a sense of
Right.
responsibility, which you
Right.
have to instill in this more neutral, equanimous way. So I
Right.
really and I promise you, I walk this walk. Grades didn't matter to me, and numbers didn't matter to me. So I would ask a child, what did you learn today? Did you have fun at lunch? Who did you talk to? What was your favorite subject? And I can tell you an anecdote when my child was loving her art history class and didn't like certain science class, and her guidance counselor said, you have to take that science research because you want to go to a certain kind of college and you have to have that on your resume. So the child said, what do I do? And I said, you drop the guidance counselor. Right? And that is exactly what we did.
Right.
And you stick with the subject that's
Right.
meaningful
That
to
you love, right.
And then on those college essays, there was the essay about a Bernini sculpture that meant something. So there it is. We're not raising resumes, we're raising children.
Right. So there's a couple of things I wanted to piggyback off what she said. One was the time management piece, which I think is another thing that we all struggle with, because it just never seems to be enough hours in a day to get everything we need to get done. So once you look at your time differently, you could start to make those changes. Like most people don't even look at it as there are 168 hours in a week. And they're always saying, I don't have time to do this, I don't have time to do that, but you have 168 hours in the week. So how do you dissect your time, and how do you learn, even with grades and in school and in life and different things that you have to do, how do I break up that time? So I think that as parents too, we have to teach our children that they have to learn to manage their time so that they can get the study in and that they can do the things that they need to do. But if no one ever taught us about time, then how do we know how to manage it better? Because like you said, everything that we do in life is something that we've been taught from somebody, from our parents, from their parents. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right way to do things. Maybe it's not. Maybe there's another way. Maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's an easier way. But we have to be open. We have to be open to it and not so stuck on, okay, this is the way that I've been taught. This is the way that I should do things. And another point that she mentioned is I think a lot of time with parents, sometimes they are living through their children. That's why they have such high expectations from them, because they didn't get to accomplish those things. So they're looking at their kids like, okay, well, this is your opportunity to do the things that I wanted to do without even realizing it, I think, a lot of times. So I think that goes right back to working on self, because you can't teach what you don't know and you can't lead where you don't go, which is something I say all the time.
So we talk about the parenting aspect, but what about the relationship aspect? And, you know, Georgia, this question is more geared towards you.
Okay.
You have your spouse, your significant other. How do you balance that time, you know, to make things better? You have your career. You're working so hard. And I'm asking this question because the divorce rate,
Right.
what I'm seeing is going up. It's not getting better.
Right.
So what would you recommend to kind of make things, I mean, we don't have a total answer, but
Right.
to make things a little better as far as relationship goes?
Well, and I can only talk from experience and what I do to help my personal relationship with my husband, and that's having a date night, because you have to have that time where it's just you and this other person, where you can, you know, talk about things, spend that time together, because I do have a busy schedule, and he does respect that, but I also have to make time for him to make sure that he understands you are a priority too. Not because I love to do this work and I'm always out and I'm doing this. You're not important. You are important. And I want you to know that you're important. And I want to take that time out to appreciate you. And in relationships, it's always important to respect that other person and communicate. Communication really is the key. If something's being done that I don't like, I am very verbal about it. And I think you have to be if you want something to work. You have to communication. That's the key. You have to communicate. You have to talk about the things that you like, your likes and dislikes, and then try to come to a common ground where you can compromise. You know, like, it's so funny because one of my books, the relationship book, people say, well, you know, when you say compromise, what do you mean compromise? Like, when you're trying to find that companion, how far should you go when you say compromise?
How far do you go when you compromise?
Well, you know what? You want to compromise when you're being fair. You don't want to compromise to the point where you feel like you're losing yourself, because you should never lose yourself in a relationship. It should be a compliment. You know what I mean? It should complement who you are. You should never have to feel like, well, he's feeling a little, you know, he may have a little low self-esteem and I don't want to make him feel bad, or she's having low self-esteem and I don't want to be the person I am because I want her to feel like she's my equal. It should never be like that. It should be where I want to make you grow, I want to make you grow, I want to make you better. What can I do to support your dreams, to support your goals, to support the things that make you happy? And that's key, and especially in my relationship, because my husband understands what's important to me. Listening, as we talked about before, listening to your spouse, your companion, your friend, listening, not always just wanting to get everything out, but listening to what they're saying, listening to what sometimes people get upset at something and it's not really that situation. It's something deeper behind that that's making them react that way. So just paying attention to what you're saying to this other person and listening to what makes them unhappy and what makes them frustrated with you. Because I know, you know, when you're married, there's things that your husband's going to do that's going to get on your nerves. Because, you know,
of course,
mine is sitting here, so I can't say a word.
But he's here to support you.
Absolutely.
Right. So you have that support, which is very important to
Right.
any relationship, to have
Right.
someone that says,
Correct.
you know, hon,
Of course.
we have this together.
Right.
We're working together. Yes.